So I've been rigging in Live2d for about a year now, and I want to make myself a summer model for 2026. The issue is I did kind of rush it during spring break and created a pretty good model, but the head angles look kind of funky, as you can see right now with this video. So I decided to update the head angles, and I wanted you guys to see the process of how I went about it. So before I do anything, I use augmented physics, which means I have them separate from the core angles of the head. So these are the core head angles that you get from the software, but I duplicate them and rename them and maneuver them, from the bottom. And then next I rig everything onto these layers in order to use these as physics settings. So this will be the core inputs, but all the movement is from these three. So as we continue the video, I want you guys to do that. So when we go to the physics settings and you see my physics setup, you won't be confused on how I did what I did. So I did finish my head angles, and I'm just going to show you my warp deformers, and I'm going to break down what I did throughout the process. So before doing any type of rigging to the head angles, I want you to put everything in a warp deformer. This means the skin, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and the eyebrows. You don't have to do the ears or anything else. I just want you to understand the breakdown of the face's movement. So I would want you to put all that into a warp, and then take that warp deformer and use the perspective tool to go left to right. This will make the process so much easier to understand on how your head moves, so you can easily make X and Y angles. Once you're comfortable with how the perspective warp looks, you then make a warp for your head pieces when it comes to the skin, the shadow of your head, and the next outline. And if you lightly smudge them around with the brush tool to make it look more defined as your head going left to right and up and down. What I also did is I took my shadow layer and made it clip to the outline layer, so I can have it pushed down to look like my line art is going away as I put my head up. You can add that too in the beginning of your head rig, just to make it like a visual indicator to understand that your head angles look okay. What makes the perspective tool so helpful from the beginning is that since everything's kind of already shifted, you can just lightly move everything else into place. So for my eyes, I just took the select brush tool, took half of the warp, and it moved it closer inward so it looks like my head is tilting left to right. And I did push it with the regular brush tool to be a little rounder, so it looks like my eyes are kind of with my head and it's moving left to right with me. Same with the up and down. It was light push movement upwards and downwards with the head's movement. For the eyebrows, I used the same method where I took a warp, took half of it, pushed it over, and I made it be connected with the face. I will say I did put the eyebrows into a clipping layer to the face skin because the eyebrows do kind of peek out. Same with my makeup, I put it on a clipping layer so it doesn't peek out as well whenever I do head turns. I will say this is the basics for eye movement when it comes to X and Y angles, because I need to learn how to do perspective to make the eye be more three-dimensional when I have a head movement. It's just very dependent on the warp deformer's layer hierarchy, and I suck at layer hierarchy. So please just give me a month and I'll get it together. Now this portion just showing you how I moved my tattoos, which was kind of difficult because I did cut the layer wrong. I just lightly moved it left to right, and then I had to take the bottom pieces of it and mush and pull it down, since I had my head going upwards and the tattoo stops in the middle of my face. So it did involve me messing around a little bit with it. And for the blush, it was easy, just push left to right movement since it's very light on the face. It was already in the perspective tool of the face, so it was easy to just adjust it for the movement it was already preset to do. Also, don't forget throughout this process to synthesize your corners so you don't have to deal with the struggles of corner angles. So when it comes to the nose rig, I did learn this from Love Mora, and I will drop the tutorial for her and for myself down below, because I did do a breakdown of how I did my nose on my channel if you would like to check that out. But generally, it's a lot of clipping and making the opacity disappear like zero for the layers. So for example, my nose, the line appears and disappears when I do X and Y angles. And when I go up and down, I simply pushed the nose down and up. I made the layers of them, everything's cut. So the highlights are 3 different layers. The nostrils are 3 different layers. And the nose shadow is its own different layer. And I have 2 different nose lines. And I clip them to a very broad colored layer and make it transparent. And next I use the reverse clipping, so it disappears and reappears by this layer's movement. So as you can see here, it's covering my nose line, and I have two separate layers, so also the other side is covered as well. And I just simply move to the left, push that layer over, and you see my nose has definition. And I also kind of hide the second nostril under that nose layer. So as you can see by the nostril, it kind of slides into place under the line of my nose. And that's kind of how I do the illusion of my nose having, some bridge to it. Now with the mouth movement, I did the same thing that I with the eyes. I took half of it with the selection brush and I moved it closer inwards. And I took the regular brush and puckered it a little bit, like frontwards, like I pulled it frontwards a little bit. So it looked like my lips are puckering out slightly. I also recommend when you're doing the mouth perspective to open the mouth so you see how it looks when you start talking with the model as it like moves left to right. I forgot to say this before, but when it comes to the warp deformers of the mouth, make sure that all of your inside pieces are in their own deformer as well. So your teeth, your tongue, anything inside at all, make sure they're all in their own warp deformer, because when you start doing the perspective of your XY head angles, you're going to end up having to move those so they kind of look 3D and defined. So the first thing I rigged was my tongue, and I used a perspective tool to lay it down flat a little bit when it came to the X angle. So when I moved left and right, it looks like it's laying flat in my mouth. And after that, I went for the molars and did a similar technique. Mind you, all of the mouth pieces are clipped to the red layer in the back, so like the inner mouth layer, so nothing can maneuver away outside of the layers, outside of the skin, and so on. I don't render my teeth just because it's easier to warp it to whatever I like when it's not super detailed, and I recommend that for anyone who's starting out the model to not be super detailed with the inner mechanisms of your mouth, so it's easier to maneuver for in-depth rigging. When I went for the up and down angles, when I go downwards, I kind of pull things up so it looks like you see the bottom of my mouth. And as I go upwards, I pushed all the layers down so it looks like you're seeing above, like the roof of my mouth. I don't really give myself upper teeth, but I guess get yourself upper teeth if you're gonna make your own model. I did see a Twitter post where somebody did a mouth cutting and they cut the fangs separate from the front teeth. And low-key, I'm gonna do that next time because having it all as one layer does seem kind of stressful. So I recommend that if you're someone who's going to do detailed mouth rigging with teeth, is to cut the teeth fangs separate from the front teeth. I will say in certain parts of the videos there's gonna be empty space because I talk too fast and I already said my point, so I don't know what to say. But if you like what I do, you can always like and subscribe and support the channel in any way you can. And I thank you guys for always watching my videos and being here for me. I realized while recording this video that like the back of my mouth was not rigged, and I don't know why it looks like that. So generally I would just kind of push it backwards from my mouth so it looks like, like where the uvula and stuff goes. So it would go downward as I go up and upward as I go down, and as I go left to right, obviously it's in the back, so it looks like it's the deeper depths of my mouth. You don't really need to add this, but I think it's cool. Now I present to you my physics settings. Now when it comes to augmented physics, you're gonna have to take every angle and make it their own like setup. So X angle separate from Z and same as Y. And I'm showing you how my angle physics looks, and you can just copy and paste them because I took them from a friend. Look up Nish on I think it was TikTok, and I'll like put a link here as well. They have like the whole number game set up, so I was like, I'm gonna copy and paste you, bro, low-key. And it looks nice. It gives me like a little swoosh, swoosh, a little bounce to it, a little motion. And that's how I do the basic head angles. And it looks nice. It looks way better than before. I will say that. Now, I feel like the ears and the hair is like dependent on who you are, the model. Like me, I just have a simple braid and I have my sheep ears because I'm a furry. But the way I organize it is by clipping masks, because usually people would just use the number order, and that makes my head hurt. Like that actually makes me want to punch a wall. So instead I just use clipping mask, and I want to showcase that to you guys so you can have an easier time similar to me. So the way that I do line art is that I do a fill under my skin layer instead of just doing like regular line art, because it just makes it easier, especially for this process. So what I do is I duplicate the black blob that is my face, which is my line art layer, and then next I to make it transparent, I just lower the opacity. Once that's done, I clip the ears layer to that layer. And then next, with that, I do the reverse clipping toggle that's under the clipping mask ID. And once this is all set up, you'll see that this layer is following your head angle parameters because it's in the warp deformer that you already had before. So all you gotta do is smudge it around a little bit to give the illusion of your ears disappearing from behind your head. And this is all set. And I do 3 different clipping layers, so 1 for hair, 1 for accessories, and 1 for ears, just because it can get a bit confusing if you put it all on one layer. So I recommend just duplicating it and doing the process for your hair, your ears, and whatever else you have behind your head. I think the only downside for this method is that if you like extreme hair physics, like you want hair to slap you in the face, it's gonna disappear because it's behind the clipped layer. So I would just recommend that if you do the hair physics, to have it be nice and flowy, but also just like keep in mind that it could clip and mess around with this invisible layer. I'm going to show you the other layer I have for my horns as an example, just because the way that I maneuvered that one is completely different from how I had to maneuver the hair in order to get the immersion of my head moving left to right without anything clipping in the way. A common thing you'll see with VTubers is that they have bangs, but you can still see their eyebrows and eyelashes behind them. And what I do is that I duplicate my eyebrows and my eyelashes. Since they're already rigged from the warp deformers we did before, I can just bring them up in the layer hierarchy, lower the opacity, and clip them to the bangs. So it gives the illusion of you seeing my eyelashes and my eyebrows behind my bangs. And with that, this is the final result. Yippee, we did it. Head angles are completely done. I will say that I want to do a tutorial on its own about the ears and the hair rigging, just because those things are big enough on their own, and I feel like they should be their own separate video. So if you're someone who's like looking at the video and is like, dang, I didn't get to learn about hair much, it's like, I'm gonna do that later. I'm sorry, gang. But I very much appreciate anyone who watched the video, and if I was any help to you in your Live2d journey, then I very much appreciate that, because I'm just a yapper. These are just things that I learned because I'm still a beginner in a way, because I've only been doing this for a year, and I would love to learn more and showcase to you guys my new techniques. And voila, we are now officially done. I finished my head angles, and now I look a little bit better than before. Bop, bop, bop. Bop, 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 bop. Ever someone who needs to adjust your physics because it doesn't suit to your liking, you can always go here, come to the cog wheel of your physics strength, and then you can adjust whatever part of your model that you want to be stronger or weaker. So for example, if I wanted my hair to be more fluid, I would just go to the hair physics, or like, you know, because the ear physics right here. Let's just do the ear physics as an example. Let's say I wanted more physics for my ears. I would just increase it, and boom, I have extra physics. I don't like it though, so we're gonna go back. But generally that's how you would like fix your physics, just in case you wanted something to be more energetic than like what was presented in the auto settings. So if you guys liked what I showcased to you and you want to see more of my content, don't forget to like and subscribe and keep updated on the next video so we can do more Live2d content together. Yippee!